the class of 2018. And currently, he's a data scientist at Eventures, venture capitalist company. He is someone who had to learn the hard way on how to improve his grades or his GPA. And he's going to tell us a little bit about himself and have some fun study tips and study hacks for us throughout this talk. So if you have any questions, we will have Q&A at the end as well. But for now, take it away, Richard.
Thanks, Melissa, for the introduction. So yeah, I'm Richard, and I'll be giving today's talk on how to get A's. But before we get started, I just wanted to say a few things about myself. I graduated from UC Davis and studied computer science and linguistics. During college, I was part of 3 different labs and had a few part-time jobs as a student developer. So if you're curious about how I landed these jobs, it's a whole different talk, but you could reach out by email, or you could connect with me over LinkedIn. So I took a few extra quarters in school because I was planning to go to grad school, but long story short, things happened last minute, and I ended up starting my career at a venture capital firm called Eventures. Our office is in San Francisco, and this is where I used to work before shelter in place. Now that the boring stuff is out of the way, here's a slide about a few interesting things about me. I'm from Torrance. It's a city near LA and next to the beach. So that means by default, I'm a huge Lakers fan, and tacos, they have a special place in my heart. Now, some of you may be wondering how I got to where I am today. Well, let me just tell you that I had a pretty rough start. I want to paint a picture of what I was like coming into college because I was never a good student. I didn't know my major until orientation day. I didn't know where Davis was. It was about a 6-hour drive from my hometown, so I thought I was going out of state. I didn't know what grade curves were, and I missed my first lecture because I got lost on campus. And I slept 14 plus hours every single day and missed almost all my lectures. So yeah, this is how I started. But I'm painting this picture to show you that I'm not the smartest guy around, but I figured out how things work, and I want to share this with you. So here's a few achievements that I'm particularly proud of. Getting straight A's for the rest of my college career after my freshman year. I obtained 3 different research positions, even publishing a paper and winning a nomination for the Best Paper Award. And lastly, I started my career at a prestigious venture firm. And today, I'm here to say just this, that with the right tools and the right mindset, you can hack your way to straight A's. Because if I can do it, you can do it too. So here's a quick roadmap of what I'll be talking about for the next 10 minutes. First, we'll cover the requirements. Next, I'll touch a little bit on what a lot of students know, but for some reason, they don't do it. And lastly, I'll be sharing a few tips that helped me get straight A's. So requirements. There's 3 things that we all need to agree on before we get started on the tips. Number 1, attend most lectures. I say most because you can still get A's without going to all lectures. It won't hurt if you miss a few. Number 2, have some sort of planner for your assignments and exams. And number 3, finish all your assignments on time. Doesn't matter when you start, you could still procrastinate. Just submit it. All right, now moving on. This slide is called What Everyone Knows. So I'll be talking about 3 common things that most students know, but for some reason, they don't do it. Number 1, know the syllabus. There's a reason why there's a syllabus for every class. So it must be important, right? Don't just read the syllabus. Know your syllabus, know your assignments, your deadlines, and your upcoming exams. Next, go to office hours. Good things happen in office hours. Go even if you don't have any questions. Just go and listen to other students, ask about research, or get to know your professor. It's even easier now to go because everything's virtual. And this may make or break your grade. And lastly, You're going to be picking your classes until graduation, so might as well pick them wisely. Look into the professor's teaching or grading style, be realistic with your time and the workload for the quarter. So that's it, just 3 things. All you have to do is just remember these 3 things and do them. And if it helps you to remember a little bit better, they all start with an active verb, right? Know, go, and pick. They're all underlined and bolded for you. KGB, pretty simple. Okay, so far we covered really quick the first 2 sections of the talk, right? The requirements and what everyone knows. So now I'm gonna shift gears a little bit and give you the 5 tips that you're all here for. But let me ask you this first, and feel free to share your thoughts in the chat. What do you think the currency for college students is, right? We're not talking about money here, but what is the most important asset to an average college student? The answer I was looking for is time. It's time. The most valuable thing to an average college student is time. And this is true because we only have about, say, 4 years in school, and we're all trying to make the best of what we're given. I remember back in my 2nd year in college, I was late to class because I missed my bus. So I took the late bus, I ran to my lecture hall as soon as I got off, and I snuck to the back as quietly as I can. And I still remember this pretty clearly. As soon as I took my seat and looked up, I saw that no one in the class was paying attention to the professor. They're either distracted on Facebook or watching sports highlights on YouTube, right? So they're all distracted. But imagine this. Imagine holding a magnifying glass and you need to start a fire, right? The first thing you would do is to find focus with the light. And with just the right amount and concentration of sunlight, you could direct it to the ground to start a fire. But if you don't have this concentration, the sunlight becomes useless and you'll never start a fire. So in the same way, it's not really about time. It's not about how long you study, how many times you go to lecture. It's about channeling the time you have into a mode of concentration and finding focus. So find focus when things really matter, because it's the first step to getting that A. So here's the first tip. Turn on airplane mode. Have you ever thought about this? Almost every phone in the world, right? Your phone right now, it has an airplane mode. And you could use it even if you're not flying. So when you're in lecture, turn on airplane mode and remove your phone away from you, physically and out of sight, because studies show that even having your phone in your pocket, it has the same effect as, say, hearing a notification go off. Tip number 2, block distracting websites. You don't have to stay away from using laptops as long as you have an app or an add-on that blocks distracting websites. And because everything is virtual right now, it's even more important to block these websites. So if you're a Chrome user, I highly recommend using this add-on called Pause. It doesn't block sites per se, but it pauses distracting websites before they open, giving you the opportunity to think twice before going on that distracting website. Tip number 3, use Pomodoro Technique. This is a classic method to optimize your focus. You can read more about it online, but basically you're just dividing up your time into focused intervals and you're taking breaks in between to recharge your focus. For example, you define one Pomodoro session as 20 minutes or however long you can stay focused. And you divide up the hour you have into about 3 Pomodoros, right? 3 different Pomodoros with a break in between. So after the last Pomodoro, You take a longer break and you hop back onto another round of Pomodoro sessions. You can use a basic timer on your phone to keep track of your Pomodoros, but I find it distracting to use my phone just because I can access all the other apps and stuff on there. So I like to turn my phone, I like to put it on airplane mode and use a desktop app called Flow. It's just a simple timer, simple design so that it's not distracting at all. Let me tell you what an average day in my junior year looked like. I would wake up pretty late at 11 a.m. To start the day. I would catch the bus right after and stay on campus for the entire day. I was taking about 21 units along with a part-time job and doing research. So just imagine me on campus, just running around all the time, trying to get to the next thing, right? The next lecture, the next lab, the next meeting. And here's the thing. I always felt anxious. I was anxious because I felt like I was missing something, like an important deadline, an assignment, a promise with a friend, or whatever. So every day, every single day, I had this looming presence in the back of my mind, like a small voice, constantly whispering into my ear that I'm missing something. But I also remember this. I remember opening up my 13-inch MacBook Pro to do my assignment, but it was running really slow. So I did a quick checkup and found nothing wrong with it until I found out the real problem. It ran out of memory. So I grabbed my external hard drive from my backpack. I plugged the drive to my laptop and transferred over some files to the drive. And I remember clearly just staring at my MacBook screen while the files were slowly transferring over, being loaded to the drive. Because I had a magic moment. I realized at this very moment that our brains work in the same way. Our minds are like the 13-inch MacBook Pro. It wasn't meant to store information, but only to process and spark creativity. So we need a file transfer once in a while to prevent information overload and not feel anxious all the time. So likewise, you may be feeling the same way right now. There's always something in the back of your mind, feeling like you're missing something, but you don't know what it is. Well, there is a way to get rid of this anxious voice, and it's by creating your own external hard drive for your mind. And I like to call this the second brain. Create a to-do list. It doesn't matter what kind of to-do list you make. You just got to start somewhere. You can either start with a piece of paper and carry it around with you, or even use an app on your phone, like what I did. Here's a picture from the internet that looks like my first to-do list that I created back in my junior year. So it doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to spend a lot of time on it. The point is, just put down all the things you need to do and make sure your list is either empty or crossed out before you go to bed. I recommend using an app on your phone because, hey, you take your phone with you everywhere, right? So if you don't know where to start, there's a lot of options for you in the market. So if you don't know where to start with an app called Remember the Milk. And we're already on our last tip. Tip number 5, create a calendar. Having a to-do list allows you to see what you're doing today. But your calendar, it allows you to see what you're doing today, tomorrow, a week from now on, a month from today, and so on. And with just one click, you have a visual snapshot of your day. The value of this is immense. So pick one between Google or Apple Calendar and stick to it. They're both great. And put down all the future deadlines and upcoming events so you won't miss a thing. Here's a picture of what my calendar looks like today. Because I have everything down in my calendar, I don't have to think. All I have to do is pull up my phone while I'm walking and to just find out where I need to go next. So here's a summary slide of what we talked about so far. Right, there were three main parts of the talk. So first, we talked about the requirements, things that you need to do before getting started. Next, we talked about on three common things that most students know, but they don't. KPG, right? Know, pick, and go. And lastly, we just covered 5 practical tips that you could start doing today. And to wrap up this time, I just want to circle back to the very first point I made. Earlier, I said, if I can do it, then you can do it too. But I forgot to mention one thing that's key to getting straight A's. And that's surrounding yourself with the right and like-minded people. This is single-handedly the most important thing that will last beyond your college years. For me, I found a mentor in college whom I still keep in touch with. He was older, had more experience and wisdom. He often checked in to ask how things were going, meet up with me to give me advices, and even give me tips so that I could ace my interviews. But above all, he was a presence in my life who answered all of my questions that I wouldn't know who to ask. So having a mentor in college really helped me. And there's just so many valuable experiences that only comes from having a mentor. So I hope that you too can find a mentor in college. A mentor who can help you get started on your journey to getting straight A's in UC Davis. And that pretty much wraps up all that I wanted to share today. So now Melissa will share a few words before we get to the Q&A part of the webinar. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. So before we move to our Q&A, I wanted to talk a little bit more about Thrive Mentorship. So Thrive Mentorship is a program hosted by volunteer upperclassmen and alumni who have felt this past year has just been overall pretty hard. And we wanted to help out in some way. So a notable thing about Thrive is that it's free. So each mentor is a volunteer, and we meet up for 4 weekly sessions, 30 minutes each, and it can be about whichever track you're interested in. And these tracks include things like life skills, lessons on leadership, and advice on your major. So it's kind of up to you what you want the mentorship to be about, and we're just here to help. So if you'd like to sign up or not sure if you already did, you can do so now on that link that Garrett's sending out right now. Thank you, Garrett. And mentorship is kicking off next week. So please make sure to check your emails since your mentors will be reaching out to you through them. So yeah, feel free to sign up. And as you're doing so, we'd like to get started with some Q&A. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put it out in the chat.
Okay, thanks, Melissa. So we have a few minutes for the Q&A part of the webinar. So we'll go until the time is up or we run out of questions. So if you have any questions, just feel free to chat it out on the Zoom chat. So meanwhile, I did get a few questions. We sent out, we have some questions that we sent out before. And the first question that I wanted to answer was, so this person asked, people have different note-taking techniques. How do you take notes when you're watching a lecture? I think for me, it really depends on like what type of lecture you're in, like, and also if the recording is available. I think previously I mentioned you don't have to attend all your lectures. So I guess for me, if the lecture recording is not available online, I would write down everything that the professor says so that I could review it after. But the recording, if the recording is available, I would just try to track with the material and just write down just the key things or things that the professor is emphasizing. It really depends. But I think one thing for sure is I remember using a note-taking method called Cornell method. I think it's a pretty popular method. So you could look it up online, but basically um, I wouldn't write down everything that the professor would say, but I would try paraphrasing everything so that I like digest it internally. And I think after every lecture, I spend about like 3 to 5 minutes just reflecting, like what I learned, and if I have any questions, stuff like that. So, I just got a question. Um, how did you go about breaking your bad habits? How did I go about breaking my bad habits? Um, Honestly, just creating better habits. Um, I don't think there's any other way to break bad habits other than to create good habits. And I remember I started out really slow. So um, like for example, I used to make my bed every day. Like didn't matter rain or shine. I would start each day by making my bed. So, and it would have like ripple effect throughout the day. And like if my day wasn't going well, at least I come back to my dorm and see that a bed is made. So, but yeah. The last question that I have is, what are the key habits for a college student? I think a key habit for a college student, in my opinion, is getting started on your assignment as soon as possible. So I I think earlier I said you could procrastinate as long as you submit your assignment on time, but it's not that healthy. In the long run, you're gonna kind of get burnt out. And I'm speaking from personal experience. So yeah, key habit, getting started on your assignment as soon as possible, um, so that you leave some room at the end before the submission date to not just double check, you gotta like triple and quadruple check your work. Make sure it's perfect. Um, so yeah, I don't think there's any more questions. So we will just end the time here. Again, thank you for attending the webinar. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to your mentors or me. Um, and again, our mentorship program is still ongoing. So that means you could still sign up. And also we have a webinar this Saturday at 8 p.m. and it's called Interview 101. So feel free to drop by Saturday, 8 p.m. So yeah, we'll see you then. And thanks for joining us. Bye.